Can you hear me at the end? Closer? Okay. Well, welcome. Thank you for being here at this fantastic chapter meeting, our first chapter meeting 24-25. Great turnout, and what amazing frequency right here. Let's start with welcoming our members, our future members, our students, and our industry partners. Thank you all so much for putting this together, Ryan. Thank you. This is incredible. Better. So our topic today is hand intelligence, the revival and preservation of authentic art and skilled artisans. We gathered here today to talk about this integral and important part as designers, what we can do in this realm to promote authentic art and skilled artisans. The renaissance of traditional crafts is a testament to our innate longing for authenticity, connection, and cultural heritage. As artisans and enthusiasts alike, we discover ancient techniques, the world becomes enriched with the beauty and meaning of handcrafted objects. Let us celebrate the artisans who create with their hands, revive traditions, the communities that preserve cultural heritage, and the individuals who choose to surround themselves with the stories and art history embedded in every handmade creation. In the age of rediscovery and an era driven by mass production, there is a shift to reconnect with authenticity, the timeless crafts of our ancestors, to find new life, breathing new chapters into the evolving narrative of human creativity. In a world dominated by machine-made products, the art of handcrafting stands as a testament to human skill and ingenuity. The imperfections and nuances of handcrafted objects add depth, character, and authenticity. Witnessing the mastery of artisans who shape raw materials with their hands, tools, and most of all, their souls. How do we as designers, that's the most important thing here, how do we as designers honor the intimate connection between the creator and the creation? Witnessing how artisans driven by a passion to create or a desire to honor their ancestors and reclaim a certain skill or their cultural identity, how can we empower them to revive the techniques, the traditional crafts that embody cultural narratives? How phenomenal is it to embody principles of slow living, conscious consumption, and a respect for the environment? The renaissance of traditional craft relies on the transmission of knowledge from one generation to the other. The artisans are custodians of ancient techniques. The transformative power of mentorship as aspiring artisans immerse themselves in the wisdom and expertise of their masters. How can we as designers give them a direction to balance between preserving tradition for growth and innovation, the intersection of craftsmanship and technology, how to empower artisans to leverage digital tools for design, marketing, and reaching wider audiences, starting with our own projects. That's our topic today, and we have an incredible panel right here. So ladies and gentlemen, give them a big hand. And we will have Kelly mediate from here, so I can lead.
Good evening, everyone. It's so nice to have you all. I'm honored to be able to moderate this panel. I am the publisher of Modern Luxury Interiors here in Arizona, and it's my pleasure to be able to have a panel of such powerhouses, and everyone really brings their own personal strength into the conversation. So we're going to start, though, with learning a little bit about each of them. And I'd like you guys to introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about your journey in the art world.
Thank you, Kelly. And thank you, Amber. That was really beautiful. I'm thinking as she's talking, I'm thinking, could you write my website copy? It sounds really, really good. Well, I'm Laura Madden. I am an artist. I am a self-taught visual artist. And for most of my adult life, I really just made art for myself and only for myself. I kind of kept it a secret, and it was something I was rather self-conscious about. And then towards the end of 2019, I decided to pursue my art professionally and start a business as an artist. So, I mean, it's been about 20 years that I was experimenting and exploring, and that has led me to my style of creating abstract, modern paintings and sculptures using reclaimed materials. So it really is a merging of sustainability and luxury, or at least those are two things that are very important to me and really formed why I started making art to begin with. So I did bring one piece here today to give a little bit of an example of what's really my favorite thing right now, which is creating more sculptural pieces using reclaimed fabrics. And yeah, that's a gist. What else?
I like that. That's a good gist.
Cut me off.
I love that story. Alfonso.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
So my name is Alfonso Verduzco, and I have been a designer for a little bit over a decade. My background is architecture. I graduated in architecture in CU Boulder in Colorado. But after I graduated, I knew that design had to be, it was my passion. Um, so I started designing, I started to represent European companies and brands from Poland, Austria, and then Italy. And that is what my world changed. When I was exposed to the Italian design, I had to the blessing to go and travel to Italy, to Milan, and train for some of the top brands in the industry, like Polyform, Minotti, Flexform, Casina, B&B Italia. And I did projects with those brands all over the country in iconic places like Aspen, Bozeman, Montana, Beverly Hills, Bel Air, all over the place. So that exposure that I had in Italy really opened my eyes for design and really what the power of something that is handmade and handcrafted. So during COVID, I made I took the leap and I started to truly push my heritage and where I come from, which is Mexico. And I really wanted to work and represent artisans, but take them to the next level and take the craftsmanship to that high level and luxury that I experienced in Europe. So I started to work with artisans in a wall covering collection that is handcrafted using black clay, and thankfully has been published in a few places and a few representations in New York and some of the top designers around the country that have used it. And most recently, I launched a furniture collection that it was inspired by pre-Hispanic Mexican architecture and my influence in Milan. And I combined the two, and now I'm launching my new furniture line. So that's where I'm at right now. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
You've been busy. Anita, tell us about your history and your journey.
Yes, so I'm Anita Lang. I am the founder and still principal designer of IMI Design. And I've been doing it many more years than I care to admit, so let's not be too specific. But let's just say it's over a couple of decades. And I truly have a passion for creating environments that uplift the human spirit. The power that we have as designers is really influential on the people that are really lucky enough to know us, if we do say so ourselves. And it is that ability to really uplift people, create something that's nurturing, joyful, and it's something that we all share collectively. Beside interior design, I have designed a furniture line. I'm designing a product line right now that is bedding, which is a passion, and it will happen. It's very interesting. I can't wait to share it with you all at some point. And I am a resort developer now, which is a new twist to my career, which I'm really enjoying. And it's fun to create when you get to be the boss. Much better. So yeah, and I have to say there's a passion for things that are hand created. And I bet I speak for every designer here, because raise your hand if this was true of you guys too, because my mom would say, don't touch any more glue, put the scissors down, stop making things, just stop. And yeah, I see the hands. Oh, yeah. And there are stories that I cut their special Asian rug, and there's the mark on the coffee table because of the paint that I was using. These are all just stories. But I have a feeling that we're all kind of bonded in that. So I'm glad you're all here, and thank you, Kelly, for being here. Amber and the whole ASID crew for putting this together. This is an amazing event. Thanks.
So, Vincent,
Yes.
I would love for you to share your story of what, not only being a second generation in the art world, but you have so many sides to your business.
Yeah.
It's not just having a gallery. There's so much more that you do from a global perspective. So I'd love for you to share the story.
So first off, we have a gallery here in Scottsdale called DeSarthe Gallery, which my wife and I, Gabby, opened up about 2 years ago. Before that, we were living in New York. Before that, I lived in Beijing, where I had a gallery. As you said, I'm second generation, so I kind of grew up in the art world. Went to auctions, art fairs my entire life, so I've seen probably a million artworks in my life. So yeah, I'm excited to be part of this panel.
Fantastic. There is so much more to his story than he is sharing, and he's shy about that. But he will definitely wrap some of the things that he's seeing globally in the art world, which is incredibly exciting in Hong Kong. So more to come from Vincent. Leila, tell us a little bit about you and your story. You are a second generation as well.
My name's Leila Parnian. I am second generation. My family started Parnian Furniture, which is down the street from here. I grew up in a family that my dad was hand making a lot of wood pieces, so I know the furniture manufacturing side. We also opened up a retail store, so the way I got into pretty much design was I was born into it. But when I started doing more arts, because I do paintings and whatnot, was when one of the designers at Parnian was panicking and looking for an art piece. She was like, can you make an art piece for my client? She needs it in like 2 weeks. And I was like, yeah, sure. Because I was always dabbling in art. That's why I started making like canvas paintings. So I've been doing canvas paintings for clients at Parnian for years. And then in 2018, I got, someone reached out to me from State 48 Brewery to do a mural. And I had never done a mural before. And I went to kind of spec the place, and I initially thought they wanted canvas on the wall, and they're like, no, we want a mural to cover every square inch of the wall. So I gave them such a ridiculously low quote, and I had never even used spray paint before, that they called me and they're like, hey, Leila, we want to go with you to paint this mural. And I'm like, cool. So I went and to Home Depot, and I'm like, I need to paint a mural. And I showed them a picture. They're like, oh no, you need to go like to an art store. This is not a Home Depot thing. But that's how I got started in murals, was from State 48 Brewery in downtown Phoenix. Showed up on site. They had to like it's a two-story building. So I had to learn on site how to use a scissor lift and spray paint. Put my name big on the walls. That's how my mural career got launched. From that, someone reached out from Schmooze in Old Town Scottsdale. And because I was posting just random stuff on Instagram, they saw my horror stuff. And then he's like, can you do this on a countertop? And again, I did the same thing I did at State 40, where I'm like, yeah, sure, I know how to use epoxy. And kind of, if you say yes now and figure it out later, that's the advice I'm giving you guys. But so that's how I got started in my epoxy career, was because they asked me to do this countertop and I just actually figured it out on the spot. I highly recommend YouTube University, if any of you have heard of that place. And that's pretty much what launched my, majorly launched my career. And now it's to the point I'm currently painting a 23-story high rise in downtown Phoenix. The high rise part I'm starting in February, but that's going to be the biggest project from date. Exciting. Well, we are still waiting for the city to approve, but I have the contract for it. But that's the gist of it. I started family business to somehow selling art there, to murals, to epoxy, and I paint mannequins because someone wanted a painted mannequin, and jackets and shoes, and yeah.
That's exciting. Okay, so you went from an epoxy counter to a 23-story building. I mean, I think I'm done. I don't have anything else. I mean, that is amazing.
But now I do the epoxy on furniture. So to circle it back around, I'm now doing my artwork on furniture that I'm selling at Parnian.
Very cool. Okay. So back to something that Amber had brought up when she was talking about the idea of mass production. And we all know that globally we're never going to get away from mass production. That is the evolution of technology. It is how people consume products. But I want to kind of pull it back, and I want to pull it back into, I'm going to ask Anita this question first. And then I really want to get each of you's views on some of the questions that we've got here. So in a world dominated by machine-made products and mass production, why do you think handcrafted artisan pieces are so important?
I can think about 5 reasons to answer that, and probably the rest of us too can in this room. One of the very first one, and to be a little bit philosophic for just a second, we're moving into an era of AI, and we're so many things are changing, and so much has changed. And one of the biggest things for being human is our creativity and being able to express ourselves through creativity. And we don't want to lose that. And I think that is one of the things that, as our world continues to become more tech heavy, it's something really important for us is to connect to the human side of us. And you do that through a piece that is made by hand, that has the strokes, and we'll talk about this in more depth, but the many strokes that go into painting, laboriously over and over and putting emotion into a canvas. So I think the biggest reason is human connection that we get from a handmade piece that we can't get from mass production. Mass production definitely has its place in our world. We could not even take care of everybody if we did not have mass production. So there is definitely a balance, and we want to do that with consciousness as we source that, and ethical, humane practices and the people that are working there, and sustainable practices for our earth. So it is necessary, but we don't want to lose sight of the hand-worked pieces. And I know we'll detail that much more as we speak.
So Vincent, I had an experience seeing an unbelievable painting that you actually had at Design 9 last year. And I think that painting to me represented when you take let's call it mass-produced Google, and we all know, we used to use a map and sticky notes in our car to get around, and now we push a button and we don't know how to get anywhere unless our map is telling us which way to turn right and left. But that artisan and artist I would like you to tell us about it, the Google map of Los Angeles. And
That's Lucian Jian, the
yes,
Shanghai artist, and going off what you're saying about like the Hollywood work, there's also this concept about works where it's just like the idea. I always say that artwork is a birth of an idea and it really inspires you. It's a different way of seeing the world. And so Lucian Jian, the way that he sees the world is kind of the way that almost a computer would see it. So he kind of dissects the world in different overlays. So he would kind of look at it from a bird's eye view and kind of almost like Keith Haring would do it, kind of like put himself into a corner and then kind of show it more geometrically.
so then he is somebody that is a very important artist that has now got work in some pretty spectacular places globally.
Well, he
And-
ended up doing some rooftops on top of the rooftop of buildings in Paris. So when you look down, you actually see what his artwork would be.
Uh-huh.
He's also done like shoes for Adidas, Nike, Absolute. So it's kind of just like Haring did. He got his artwork out to the people. So I think it's really important. And then there's an image up on here at some point that'll come up, but his most recent show that he did at our gallery in Hong Kong is called like Into the Matrix. So it's like really this way of kind of deconstructing how we see the world. And as we go into technology now, I think we really are starting to see things like an algorithm.
Well, and that particular painting really struck me personally because of, everybody knows what a map looks like.
Right.
And then his take on it, and then taking it down more granular and putting it, doing things with sneakers and doing, other things. So I thought that I really wanted to hear what your take was, and I wanted you guys to understand it's not just about mass production, but it's taking something so mass like a map
Right.
and bringing it into an unbelievable
And he
artwork.
has some repetition to how he makes the word. And it's interesting because at the end, the product is very minimalist and also maximalist at the same time.
So Alfonso, talk to us about, you have done, some things obviously, in Mexico. And with this particular question, tiles, as we know, are mass produced. Do you see mass production in big box stores? You see specialty tiles that find themselves into the trade only showrooms. But talk to us about how you working with hand in hand with the local artisan and how you were launching that tile.
It has been a fun experience to work with the artisans because when I started this idea of, first of all, the tile, I think you have seen it on the screen, and I have some display there by the faucets, sink faucets there, but these particular clay that they use in Oaxaca, it turns black because of the process that they bake it. It's actually, they penetrate the smoke inside underground fire pits. And the smoke is actually what's making the clay black. So my approach when I talked to the artisans the very first time, I knew that I wanted to design something artistic, but in the shape of a tile. Because whenever I was working in residences in Aspen or Beverly Hills, I felt that there was this need of wall treatments besides marble, besides excuse me, a wallpaper. So my approach, I really wanted to offer something to the design community so they can treat walls differently with these beautiful textures created by nature, but in a material that it has not been seen before. In this community in Oaxaca, they have been focusing for hundreds of years to make utilitarian objects, plates, cups, mugs, but they have some tiles, but three-dimensional tile that is, it's kind of mass produced in a way, but obviously it's handcrafted, but there's not necessarily a uniqueness to it because they're all the same. It's a three-dimensional mold and then they come the same. There's like 2 or 3 designers in Mexico that they do it. My approach to these, I really wanted to offer something that people have not seen before, techniques that I came up with. So it has been a fun journey to really experiment something that it creates an artistic piece in a tile form to create an accent wall in a property. So I know that the mass-produced style industry, I mean, it's produced in Spain and Italy and Morocco. I mean, there's so many places, but the approach that I have for this collection is something truly beautiful and unique because every piece is handcrafted. The techniques are applied by hands. Every tile is polished by hand. The process is so ancestral. So it really creates something that I think that it's very unique.
So now, Lauren, you being the artist, how do you see the artisan work versus the mass production? And what have you created in your art world that is now going to impact design differently?
Well, that's a really interesting question because, so I came to art from fashion and I was specifically in sustainable fashion and mainly because just the whole concept and how out of hand mass production with fashion had become and the amount of waste is so obscene. And that actually is what brought me, for so many years, I collected these fabrics just because I knew with this mass production, the amount of resources that go into the making of a fabric or a bolt of fabric is huge. So I just felt like, felt very badly about just throwing away fabrics, even though they were scraps. Finally, it was about 2021, and I had the thought to start using those fabrics in my artwork to create more sculptural artwork. So it was only because of mass production that brought me to that idea. So I don't really have good things to say about mass produced clothing or anything, but it did bring me to something that I enjoy doing greatly. But did I answer your question?
No, you did. Well, and I purposely asked that question because I wanted to hear your thoughts about how, with that piece of artwork that you have here, with that reclaimed fabric, obviously that is a completely different taste. And, obviously we know we can buy artwork that has been mass produced, but then in these luxury homes and when you're working with design and you're working with interior designers like yourselves, it's taking art to another level. It's being able to see something that's not just color coordinated, in a palette of browns or grays. It's about looking for artwork pieces, whether they're collected or created. So, Anita, as a designer, when you, in the artwork itself, and we had a little bit of a conversation, whether it's artwork or whether it's a piece of furniture, there are things that get not just mass produced, but get duplicated in the world of knockoffs. And I know that you were just recently at the DLN and you had some incredibly great conversations and people talking about the idea of replicating someone else's work. What are your thoughts about that?
Thanks for asking that question because it's something really important to me, and I think something that should be important to our whole community. We spent a lot of time talking about so it's Designer Leadership Network, and they have a summit in Scotland, which is amazing. And you're in a room with 350 thought leaders in our industry. And one of the topics we talked about is what's our responsibility. Specifically, it had to do with the provenance of things we are selling. So if we're selling something that is handcrafted, let's say it's supposed to be a rattan piece that's handcrafted in England, and that was the specific example they were using. But 99% of it is made in China. It's brought into the country. It gets a little spot of something. Is that really authentic? And is it our job as designers to really educate our clients and ourselves about that? Because if we don't, what's happening is we're losing the skill craftsmen that can make that in the country of our origin originally, right? So that's already an issue. And specifically, it was Lulu Little, I just love the name, Lulu Little, who took over a company that was historically known in England for doing rattan work, and really had done a lot of research on it. So first step was really understanding the provenance of what we're selling to our clients and making sure we're educated on it, and then educating our client and why it's important. So if we're not really making sure that we're supporting the artisans. And here we have a lot of artisans to support, you know, from our indigenous culture here to even our own craftsmen. Are we really supporting them in the way that we best can in educating our clients? And then the other thing that is a really big movement is really about intellectual property. And we all are designers in this room. We are the creators. So really getting away from that knockoff culture that has become so prevalent in our society, that's just a no-no. Like, we should not be doing that. One reason we shouldn't is it takes away the importance of the creativity of a designer. You're undermining yourself as you do that. When you say we can go ahead and knock somebody else off, we can certainly be inspired by other people. We're inspired by each other constantly. And I'm not talking about that. You know, a client can come in and say, hey, we've all heard it. You know, I want this Holly Hunt look, and we can respect that. But maybe they want it, but let's not copy that. Let's be inspired by it and use our skills, because we can do it. You know, we can make something unique for them that will have that essence. And when we have reverence for a creator, for the creative person behind it, we actually add so much to our own craft and to respect for each other. So it's something that I've just been really thoughtful about in our own practice. We've had clients come and ask us to do knockoffs, and we don't do them in our office, period. So we all know that that's just not allowed.
Which, and that was a great answer. And I think that it is, you know, it's a big part of the design community. You've got clients that see things that they want to look just like that, and maybe their budget doesn't afford them a Holly Hunt sofa. But I do think that, you know, what Anita is saying is so critical, that you take something that you're inspired by, or your client is inspired by, and you take it to the next level versus having it be the easier way out and just knocking something off. But I want to ask this question to Leila. So when it comes to mass production and thinking about the furniture side and the years that you've spent, you know, with your family in the furniture side, why do you think handcrafted artisanal pieces are so important?
For me, just being on the retail side and the artist side, it allows you to tell a story. So one thing that I've noticed is a lot of times clients come in the store. To me, there's a difference between decor and arts. I sell a lot of paintings that are decor, that are mass produced because somebody wants to spend a certain budget or they want something fast off the wall. So that to me is just decor. I don't consider that like artwork. And I have made decor for people because they're just like, I want a black and red painting. And I'm like, sure, I'll throw some art, you know, paint on a canvas and sell it to you. Then there's art, and the pieces I like to do is when a client comes to me and kind of shares their story, and they're like, can you take the story and take your version of it and put it on a canvas or put it on a mural? So I think it's important as artists or creators or designers to be able to share a story that, you know, whoever your client is, and have something original. Also, as people who own, you know, artwork or design, they also want to tell a story. So when their friends come over, they want to be able to share and say, you know, I got to meet with Anita Lang and she sat and we designed this whole thing because I told them whatever, and they can tell that story. Or, you know, for me, it's like I met with Leila and I shared that I was, you know, we were in Japan and we fell in love under a cherry blossom. Can you take our story and put it on canvas? So I think that's why it is important to be able to make original art versus mass produce, is honestly part of it is a story.
Vincent, what are some ways that designers can unearth different art, whether it's art, if it's someone from some of our, you know, pre-artwork in the 1800s or the 1900s, or even something current. But what is a great way for us to understand better what is happening globally when it comes to collecting art?
The number one advice I'd say is get an advisor. A lot of times it takes a lot of like research and knowing and being in the art market to know exactly what's happening. As I said earlier, I've probably seen hundreds of thousands, maybe a million artworks. There's a little cheat code I could tell you. if you see an artwork and you're curious, like kind of where it lands and the kind of the scope of things, do Google image reverse search on it and see what comes up. And then I started to use that a little bit because you have the entire internet to show you what's going on out there. And so you can say, like, is this that unique? Does this have its own soul? Is this something that's going to really stand out? Put it in there, see what happens. But get an advisor, though. They can tell you the nuances of how to collect. I mean, collecting is all about, I mean, there's three reasons for most people. It's going to be investment. It's going to be posturing, if you will, showing like who you are. And then it's passion, my favorite collectors. But you kind of have to think about the other ones as well. Sometimes you're passionate about something, but you don't know exactly what it is. So you kind of want to have an advisor to guide you through it and let you know what's happening. It's one of these industries where insider trading is the norm. So if you're in it, you know what's happening, you pay attention to the auction houses, the museums, and all that. You kind of have a little bit of an insight. That's invaluable.
Okay, this is something for each of you, and I want to get your take on this question. I'd love to just kind of go down the line and get what you think about this. What do you think is the biggest barrier for designers when it comes to incorporating more handcrafted pieces in design projects? The barriers.
Budget. I mean, the first that comes to mind is budget, and also time. Just getting something on their deadline, from my experience.
I was gonna say actually a budget, but what I have experienced is that whenever I go and present my collection to designers, obviously they weren't aware of it. So there's that awareness of that particular collection or that particular product that is available for them, and also timing. I mean, my collection or my tile takes, typically longer than a typical tile that is mass produced or any art piece. But yeah, timing I think is one of the biggest ones for that.
I would probably give a little pushback to budget, although I have been very lucky as far as the projects that we work in.
Anita is going to be able to take your budget and she is going to up your game.
Not a word I really appreciate. But what I have actually been teaching my team too is you can do original art at lesser price points. I think one of the biggest challenges for us, at least as designers, is we are so busy, right? And we have to do 1,000 things for a house. Like I was thinking, the miracle house comes together. We have to make 1,000 decisions, and they want it, by the holidays and these crazy times. And so we have all the stuff that we have to source. And so we sometimes source what's convenient because that's what we have time to do. So learning what your resources are, and you can have good go-to resources. And I'm going to take this moment to plug something I think is going to be very exciting for many of us designers. Has anybody heard of ArtLink? Yes, raise your hand. So I'm curious how. Yay. Okay, this is wonderful. So I sit on the board of ArtLink now because I'm really passionate for what they're doing. Yeah, they're so awesome.
Yay.
What's unique about ArtLink is their goal is to support the artists and help them, because not all artists have that secular background, so they're helping the artists. And they are launching a program to help us as designers find their artists, among other people too. But, I like to think of it as just for us designers because we need it. So they're starting, and I'm going to hold up a code at the end so you can stay connected to it. So first of all, there is artisipatory, I think it is what they called it, where everyone just registers. So you can register too, and they just keep you up to date on what's happening. But now they're going to have like an A to Z where you can find the artists that you want to use. So you can put in there a budget range, maybe ceramic artists, and you could start finding local artists to help fulfill things. So I think that's amazing. Yeah,
I think that is amazing too. I do. I think that's amazing.
Yep. I also want to say budget is not a bad word. If you walk into our gallery, we're just as happy to sell you a Picasso for $10 million or a student artist. I mean, we're always at ASU meeting the young artists, and we've helped them out by selling their works a lot, and that makes us just as happy. And it's going to be in your range, your budget range, and it's just as beautiful, just catching them a little bit earlier.
I agree. I mean, I think budget can go high and low. just because, working with a designer is, when somebody's working with an interior designer, there's a cost for that. But I also think that a designer is going to bring, that ability for curated pieces that are special and one-offs. Okay, so I would love to hear what your thoughts are.
I've found communication of being able to get a client's vision or whatever they're wanting out, where we're on the same page. And so sometimes I feel like I've lost jobs because either they can't communicate to me what they're wanting, or they're not, and I'm trying to sketch it and they're like, no, 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 not that or this, or we can't meet on what we're wanting, not because they probably have the budget or they have whatever, but we're not communicating.
Lauren, what is the best way for designers to work with artists and artisans, particularly custom work or commissions?
Well, probably email me. I mean, what do you?
So when it comes to commissioning a special art piece and that collaboration,
Yes.
how does a designer approach you to accomplish a special commission?
I mean, sometimes they know exactly what they need, or the client has told them, I'd love something like this, or the designer has their own, idea in mind. Sometimes they will send me a full-fledged, 10-page mood board, which, sometimes is helpful. But I mean, back to what Leila was saying, communication, or just as much communication as possible, is really the biggest asset to really helping everybody get what they want.
As designers, do you have a lot of clients that come to you and want you to create or find an artist to commission a special piece for their home? Show of hands that does that? Yeah. And is there ever times where you encourage your clients, to go that direction if they can't find something that's special to them? Yes? Yeah, you do that. All right, so I have another question for you, Alfonso. So, what role do you think artisanal work plays in preserving heritage and telling the stories of various cultures? Because you have traveled so much, you've seen the impact from Europe to Mexico.
I think the importance of the practice of handcrafted and artisan work is keeping the tradition alive. In my case, working with artisans in Oaxaca, I work with a shop that it has 4 generations, and they've been teaching. Like right now, the shop that I work with, there are about 40 people working in the shop, and it has from the oldest guy that I work with. He was trained by a Japanese master on the clay, and he has been teaching his son, his daughter, and then he has been like just teaching the next generation. So for me, it's so important to keep that alive. And that's my goal as a designer, to support that artisan community. And that has been my goal since I started. Like, I really want to support them, give them a better lifestyle, and hopefully my projects start getting larger and larger, where these artisans, I mean, the family members, they're all artisans. And I told them, I'm gonna change your life. Not just you 40, but I wanna work with your aunt, and I'm gonna work with your brother, and I'm gonna work with your cousin. And that's my goal, to keep that alive. I wanna eventually build a shop where younger generations start learning these techniques. Because obviously, technology and AI now, so even younger generations, sons and daughters of artisans, they are not necessarily getting their hands dirty right away in the clay. I'm so fortunate and blessed that the people that I work with, everybody has learned since they were like 5 years old, and they used to play with clay, and they were playing with clay since kids. But I really want to fight and be present for that community. So it's maintaining it alive, and that's my main goal.
I like that.
Can I comment on that
Yes,
too? Just
please.
'cause I think that's so amazing what Alfonso is doing. You know, Lori Weitzner does that with wallpaper. All these amazing craftsmen from different cultural regions that are dying out because nobody's supporting the dated, what they're doing at the moment is dated. And then someone like Alfonso goes in and like, oh my goodness, these guys have this skill level. How can I make something that relates to today's market and even that the designers are going to get so excited about it, and she's doing the same thing. So as designers, we can really search out those kind of vendors that are doing that for us and just think of all the amazing impact that those choices make then on these sometimes villages that are supporting the crafts.
I like that. I like that. So I'm going to circle back to you one more time, Anita. So looking ahead, where do you see artisanal and handcrafted work fitting into design? And will there be an increased demand for it? And specifically because of the rapid pace of technology. And, you know, it's a slippery slope when we start getting into AI and that replication, that opens up a whole new world. But, you know, what are your thoughts?
I think it becomes more and more sought after, and the more we can be in front of that, it's really going to become more of even a trend to get something that's handmade and actually has imperfections, right? Like the wabi sabi, when there's the crack, that's like where the light comes in. Those things that are truly human are going to become more and more sought after. We already saw it in the art world, right? Where all the art that people could recognize, nobody can even touch those artists anymore. And it's more and more like that. So we can be in the forefront of that, really educating our clients, helping them curate the type of pieces that have soul. That's what I think of as pieces that have soul.
Leila, I'm going to ask you this question and I'm going to kind of preface it with how, you know, as you told your story about, you know, from the mural to the epoxy now to this 23-story, you know, building painting. So how does handcrafted work impact humans different than machine-made products? And do they change the way that we engage with our surroundings? So that question kind of hit me when you were talking, but this could be a really good question to ask you because you're creating these one-offs and now you've got a huge, something that's going to be on 23 stories is going to be significant. But how does that impact, you know?
Just, I mean, on a physical standpoint, I don't know of anything that can do a 23-story building. So, or certain high rises. I know there's machines now that actually you can buy for like 30 or 40,000 that will be put up against the wall and it'll print a mural. But there still is the element of the client walking up as you're painting and being like, you know what? Can you change this to this color? Yeah, right there you can do it. Or let's change this or let's do this. With machines, I don't feel like it's, you know, as a quick of a process. It's like, okay, well, let me go get my laptop and let me reprogram this whatever machine. So just on a level of like weirdly being human, you can do things, I think, faster on the spot in certain situations.
So now I want to open it up a little bit in terms of the conversation. And I want to, now that you've heard a little bit from everyone, what kind of questions do you guys have for anyone on the panel? Come on, there has to be something. You guys can't just not have a question. Yes.
Might be for anybody, kind of mentioned it a little bit, like, so you're not really communicating with a client, but what if, do you have, situations where maybe you discover that the client, doesn't really like your style, and they're kind of just wanting you, like, oh, you're a good painter, but they want you to paint something with a different style or something like that, or, you know, and then how would you handle it? Yeah, do you refer them out? Like change your style?
So in the beginning of my art career, if you wanted a black and white dog, I would paint you one. If you wanted a sunset, I would paint you one. If you wanted me to do whatever, I would do it because that was the beginning of my career. 3 years ago, I decided I want to stop painting Airbnbs. I wanted to stop doing residential murals. Like
Very rarely do I do residential now. So when I get people asking me, hey, Leila, can you paint a sunset and cactus in my backyard? I just simply, and I don't, then usually the next thing is like, I'll pay whatever. I don't, it doesn't feel good to me to do that. So usually I say I don't align with that type of artwork anymore, but I refer them out. I'll say, but I have an amazing artist that would love to do that. I would love to connect you. So you give them an option. I got to a point where I want to be true to projects that excite me, and because I'm doing one right now because I said yes, and it's very boring. It's like clip art and painting, and I will not post it, but those jobs I'm doing, essentially, I'm actually kind of outsourcing it to other artists to do it because I don't even want to touch it. So I would just suggest if someone, you have a project like that, and then artist is like, I don't want to do it. And a lot of artists will do it, but a lot of them will just say no. And it's better for the client to get an artist who's excited about the project versus just being like, I'll do it for the money.
Nita, what are your thoughts about that question?
I don't know, because I'm thinking about something else I want to say.
Go ahead.
I don't know, it's a little out there, but if you don't mind. I feel like I want to share because I've been doing design for, as we know, a few years. And at first you're conquering the five senses, right? Like you've got color, you got the texture, you got all the five senses. And I feel like this next part of my career is about the sixth sense. When I say the sixth sense, I know this is gonna be a little crazy, but does anybody believe in the power of intention? Like when you put a thought into something, it has an impact. And that goes back to the double slit. If anyone's familiar with the double slit experiment that happened in the late 1800s, they threw photons through double slits. But because the observer was watching it, it impacted the outcome. And anything we do with thoughts, and as we serve our clients with thoughts, it impacts that. It's going to feel different in those spaces that we create. If we're doing it begrudgingly, if we're doing it with heart, if we think about our people. I do a meditation before I start a project, so I'm really in tune with the people. And that's why artist work is so important. They are touching that art over and over with the thought and with warmth and with passion. I remember I had seen Starry Nights, I saw reproductions 100 times of that, as we all have. And then I was in France and I went to the Starry Night there and I saw it in person and I teared up. I could feel the passion coming off of that painting. I could see every brush stroke. And so doing things, that hand connection, that hand creation is just everything in what we do. And we too are the creators for our clients.
I thought you were going to say, I know you have something to say.
That I absolutely love what you're saying, Anita, because when I went to Oaxaca for the first time, it's so funny how the story is because I sketched my idea about I have a tile that the artisan grabs a corn cob, a mazorca in Spanish, and I told the artisan, I just want you to hit the clay with the corn, and I wanna see your emotions on every single piece. I want to see when you were mad. I want to see when you were angry. When you were happy. And it's so funny because when I send them the sketch the very first time, I traveled to Oaxaca. I took my photographer and my web developer, and I'm like, all right, we're gonna go capture these amazing images of my tiles. They're gonna be made perfectly. And I show up to the artisan shop, and what they understood from my sketch was that they needed to get one of the corn kernels and just like mark it individually on each individual tile. And I'm like, no, I want you to just hit it with it. So emotions and expressions and exclusivity and uniqueness, I think those are synonyms that I use for my collection because every single piece is one of a kind. You can see the strokes of the artisan, the emotions that they were transmitted. I mean, I have that tile that they smoke it by hand. They leave it in the terracotta finish and they burn it, they smoke it, and they paint with the smoke. Every single tile is painted with the smoke. So the ancestral process of every tile, there's a story and a significance for every single tile. So when you do an installation, it's one of one. And there is that connection with the client because there's a connection between the product, the client, and the designer. And that has been some of what my philosophy is creating that for the community.
What other questions? Yes.
Advice to give a designer that might have a client that has not thought about original artwork and to encourage them to include that in their design if that isn't something that has been on their radar? What advice would you give to a designer that?
I can do it quickly.
That's a really, yeah.
I want to
Oh,
hear
no,
from
go
both
ahead.
of
Might
you.
be quick. Bring them to a home that has original art. I mean, it's a massive difference when you walk in, you feel all the energy, you feel all these works kind of speak to you. And it just, the home is warm and it's alive and it's real. And then once they go see that, they'll be like, okay, I want the same thing. Yeah, I get it now. You have to see it to believe it.
I would invite someone, if my style aligns with the client, I would invite them to come and see my work in person because seeing the work in person, like everyone here has said, you know, you can see the brush strokes, you can, original art, you feel the soul, you do feel that connection. And it's just, it's a vibe. It really is. So I would invite them to come see in person and go from there. Maybe it will resonate, maybe not, but you know, I always offer that up because I love hearing people's feedback and then they can be sure, let's proceed or no, this isn't what I'm looking for.
I also think, I mean, art is so subjective and it's very individualistic. Yeah, and then to Anita's point, it's also very experience. I mean, you experience emotion if you connect with it. Yeah. What other questions? Anybody? Anybody? Yes. Well, and I would say, I would add to that. Yes, I would add to that. The group, you know, for me being a moderator, everyone brings a huge, this group, everyone brings a huge individual dynamic. And as a moderator, you think about the messaging that's coming out to the audience. And each of them is so drastically different as Amber gave us the topic of what we were going to talk about. And so it's really cool to listen to each person's, you know, response or their take on a question. And for me as a moderator, some of these answers tonight kind of took me on my own journey of, you know, wanting to understand it better. So I want to say thank you to all of the panelists. You guys were incredible.
You, everyone. This was incredible. Thank you so much, all of you. This was really wonderful. Let's give them a big hand. I just want to add something here. With my design experience for 25 years, what I have learned is everybody is different. All designers are different. We carry different energy. Our product, our design is different. Not one of us can be the other person. So bring that energy out, bring that frequency that you're at, and match it with the art that resonates with you and your client, and create that unique design, the unique project that stands out. And for live art, I say when you use art that is authentic, what you're doing is adding life to your project. We cannot get away from mass produced. We know that. It has to be added, but how about we create a balance? How about we intentionally make this shift that let's balance this with art that is authentic so it becomes actually a project that's alive with the energy. Thank you again, all of you, for coming. I also want to thank Lux and Ryan for this incredible Brad, this is all brilliant. So big hand to As you can see, the products here are absolutely phenomenal. Please take a walk and see what incredible designs they have. And our food and bar is open, so please enjoy yourselves and thank you again.